Hey, friends. This is Martine Williams, and I am obsessed with all things mompreneur life and helping you to remix your priorities, your habits, your mindsets, and yes, even your relationships so that you can build a successful business without losing yourself in the process. I'm also obsessed with the color turquoise and lyrics of the 80s and 90s, but that's beside the point. Girlfriend, you don't have to hustle 24/7, 365 and continue to sacrifice your health, your relationships, and your sanity to be a successful mompreneur. As a small town girl living in a lonely world to a six-figure mompreneur, I am here to teach you how. There is a better way, and this podcast is your one-stop shop for all of the how-tos, the encouragement, the life hacks, the success tips, and of course, a little side of tough love. This is the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. So let's do this. What's up, friends? We are back, and today's episode is a Turquoise Talk guest, Steph Tuss. I'm super excited for you to listen to this conversation. It was a very honest and vulnerable conversation around mompreneur life, hiring help, asking for help, getting the help you need, mom guilt, lessons like her 100K lesson that she wanted to share with everybody here on the show, what mistakes or what things not to do. So just a really, really great conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it. So let me tell you a little bit about Steph. So Steph Tuss is the CEO of a multi-million-dollar global consulting company, Life Is Now, Inc., and co-host of Business Daily News' top-ranked podcast, The Successful Mind. Steph discovered her love for teaching at a young age, beginning her career as an educator. It was during this time that her firstborn child was facing health difficulties, and she decided to completely overhaul their diets to figure out the root cause. She went back to school to pursue a master's degree in holistic nutrition and went on to open a practice to help families who faced similar challenges. It's a great story. Fast forward a few years, Steph hired David Nagel and his team at Life Is Now, Inc. as her health practices business coach. As she continued to scale her business, her love for entrepreneurship and growing businesses shined through. She sold her business at the age of 33 and joined the Life Is Now, Inc. as the director of sales in 2009 before taking on the CEO role less than a decade later in 2016. In her 6 years at the helm of the company, Steph has become the primary driver behind all of the Life Is Now's marketing, business development, and brilliant team culture. As a recent empty nester, she lives in Charlotte, North Carolina with her husband and cattle dog, Jack. In her spare time, she enjoys traveling the country in her Airstream. You're going to love Steph. I really enjoyed our conversation. And so without further ado, let's do this, friends. Welcome back, friends, to the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. This is your host, Martine Williams, and I am so excited for today's Turquoise Talk guest, Steph Tuss, and really excited about the topics and the information we're going to be covering today. As mompreneurs, I think it's super important what we're going to talk about today. So thank you, Steph, for taking the time to come on the show and share all of your knowledge and your wisdom and just your story with us.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. So for those that don't know you, and I don't know a lot about you, can you share just a little bit about your journey as a mompreneur, as an entrepreneur, a little about your family?
Well, interestingly enough, I became an entrepreneur because I was a mom. I started out as an elementary school teacher. I taught fifth grade music and math, science, and social studies. Grew up really middle class, lower middle class Midwestern. My dad worked for 30 years at the General Motors manufacturing plant. My mom was the credit manager at the local hospital, meaning she had the fun job of calling people to tell them that they owed money in medical bills. So I grew up really, really, security-based, I guess you would say. Never had any plans to be an entrepreneur. Don't have any entrepreneurs in my family. So it just wasn't, I was going to be a teacher. I was going to teach for 30 years and going to retire just like I saw all my other teachers do and live life happily ever after.
Right.
So I got my 4-year degree, went to school, got my first teaching job, moved to California, and about 2 years in, realized that there was no way in hell I could stay for 30 years. But it took me another 8 years to actually make a change. And that happened when I actually gave birth to my first daughter, who is now, she's turning 22 tomorrow. So Yeah. So I gave birth to her 22 years ago, and she was born very sick. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with her. She was failing to thrive, crazy things like a newborn nursing without a dirty diaper for 6 to 7 days.
Wow.
And as a new mom, I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I
Right.
was killing my firstborn child, and it was a really dark time.
Mhm.
And at about 3 weeks, we went to the doctor, and he said, "Look, we don't know what's wrong, but we'd like to do surgery. We'd like to do invasive exploratory surgery." And I was always grew up to completely respect medical professionals and not question their judgment. And this gave me pause because I was
Right.
like, I
Yeah.
don't know that I want, like, I don't know if that's the right thing. And so I dove deep into alternative medicine. And I mean, down the rabbit hole. Like, I
Mhm.
saw Chinese herbalists, I saw acupuncturists, I saw infant massage therapists, I saw lactation consultants, any information that I can glean to give me any kind of thing to try to
Right.
help her feel better, to get her system working. I tried. And I just so happened stumbled across a lactation consultant who just simply said, "Hey, change your diet." Because I was nursing at the time. And so I completely changed my diet. I ate only chicken and white rice for a week, and every single one of her symptoms went away.
Wow.
It
Wow.
turned out to be food sensitivities. Now, 22 years ago, that was not, we
No.
didn't
Yeah.
know about that kind of thing, right? That didn't exist. Yes, someone had a peanut allergy or a shellfish allergy, but food sensitivities in an infant, that just wasn't
Mhm.
a thing. And it impacted my life so much that I thought, I'm a teacher. This is what I should be teaching.
Right.
Like, this is way more important than fifth grade music, math, science, and social studies.
Yeah.
So while I was teaching, I went back to school, got my master's degree in holistic nutrition. And then in year 10 of teaching, I had my degree, and I let my principal know that I was going to leave to go open my own nutrition practice. And she very politely said, "There'll always be a position here for you when you decide to come back." Um, and at that
Oh, the
moment,
nice
I
statement,
thought,
right?
there is no way in hell I'm coming back here.
Right.
Um, I started off on my own, and I grew very, very quickly. And I think I grew quickly because, A, I was passionate about what I was teaching. I had experienced the results in my own life. And also, I didn't know what I didn't know. So I didn't have anybody in my ear telling me that I couldn't, or that I didn't know what I was doing, or that I should do things one way and not the other. So
Right.
I just took after it with the goal of replacing my teacher income, which, let's be honest, wasn't much at the time.
Right. Right.
And like I said, I grew very quickly, got to a place where, I was working, I had a full docket of clients. They were getting great results. I also was working with a handful of female professional athletes. And I was also the team nutritionist for the University of Illinois Chicago men's baseball team. So that was a lot for just me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get to where most business owners get, where you're completely tapped out and you
Yeah.
can't grow without changing something significant. So I hired a business coach to help me figure out how I could continue to grow my business. And
Mhm.
that business coach was David Nagel, who is now my business partner. And it was through my coaching that I built my business to a place where I realized that while it was really easy to teach someone how to do the things that they needed to do to be healthy, it was a whole other thing to understand why they didn't do those things.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's the same reason why you don't do those things in business, or you don't do those things in your life. It's paradigm and psychology based. And I fell out of love with nutrition in and of itself, and fell more into love with the strategy of business and marketing, and also the neuroscience and the psychology behind what causes someone to be successful in whatever it is that they set out to do. So followed my heart onto thing two after teaching and after having my nutrition practice, and sold my practice, contacted David and said, "I want to work with you." And I
Yeah.
started at the bottom, did sales, did marketing, did curriculum development, did course creation, and then 6 years ago became CEO. So if you would have asked me 20 years ago where I would be today, I could not have predicted this. It was through a series of saying yes, but I credit it all to being a mom, because I
Yeah.
needed to find answers, and those answers led me to the next thing, which led me to the next thing.
What a powerful story. I mean, there were so many nuggets in there that I'm like, I want to, hopefully, I know the listeners will go back and listen to your story. There's so much power in someone's individual story. I was actually listening to a book on audio today talking about that. I don't think we can, as entrepreneurs, listen enough to crafting your story and understanding your story. And that's why I love having a podcast, because I love hearing the stories of other mompreneurs, and just your passion for getting answers, drove you into your first business, that you used your skill sets from your previous, career in teaching. And then what you learned through, building your nutrition practice and now helping business, owners. It's just a really powerful story. And I love when you said about coaching, and you knew that and this is how I feel about coaching too, as a coach and as someone who always has a coach, is you kind of knew you had gotten your business to the point where you could take it, right? And you needed someone to come alongside you and kind of refine the skill sets and kind of help you scale and just help you to see what could be possible without burning yourself out and leaving, your family and everybody behind, which is what I'm super passionate about helping mompreneurs do, is, build their business successfully without losing themselves in the process or sacrificing their family and their own health and those kinds of things, because we are in a hustle culture. Would you not agree? I mean, it's rampant. And I feel like there are some people that are starting to understand, because they've either crashed and burned themselves, or they're realizing that the new wave of entrepreneurs, they're just not wanting to sacrifice some of those things. So it's been kind of exciting to see a little bit of the shift, but we're still very heavy on the hustle.
We are very heavy on the hustle, 100%.
Yeah.
It's written across social media platforms too. Like,
right. Yeah.
Hustle, there's something wrong with you, and that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's a difference in hustle and hard work. Like, I'm a hard worker, but I'm not willing to hustle 24/7, 365 and, burn myself to the ground for anything. So I just think I'm glad that you agree with that and you see it too. And for the mompreneur that's listening, I mean, you have two women right here who are not going with the culture and are here to kind of help you and support you to not build the business in that way, because it's not sustainable. No. And a good coach will help you with that. And I think that was kind of what led you into having your business coach, was you knew you wanted to do more, but you also knew you didn't want to sacrifice some of those things.
Right.
So before we started recording, I was talking about her backdrop, and we may show some of the video of this on social, but it's gorgeous. And she was talking about her assistant, and who's also like an interior decorator, which is like the perfect match, right? Yes. To be able to help you come in with all of that. But hiring early, I think, is something that when I first hired my first coach, so whether it's a coach or it's an assistant or it's a social media, manager or whatever, it's like we have this mindset that I can't afford it, right? Or what would I have them to do? Those were some of the thoughts that I had. Like, by the time I teach her how to do it, I could just do it and get it done, right? These were some of my early thought patterns that I had. And I believe there are mompreneurs that are listening today that they don't understand the importance of hiring early. So can you describe a time when you realized that hiring someone earlier than you initially planned was beneficial for your business or your personal life?
So yes, I've made a series of kind of unconventional hires. One of the big things that I struggled with as a new mom at that time, when I started my business, I had 2 children by that time, and trying to juggle it all was actually a nightmare. And what was causing me to try to juggle it all was the amount of guilt that I was feeling. Mm-hmm. I was feeling guilty. I was feeling mom guilt about not being good enough for my kids. And I was feeling business guilt about not being good enough for my clients and for my business. So when I was in my business, I was thinking about all the things that I should be doing with my kids. And when I was with my kids, I was thinking about all the things that I thought I should be doing in my business. So I really kind of went in a deep dive around mom guilt in general. And one of the ways around mom guilt is to allow yourself to be supported. Mm. So a lot of people think your first hire needs to be a salesperson or, an executive assistant or an administrative assistant. Mm-hmm. For me, my first hire was childcare. Yeah. And that came with a lot of guilt as well. Yeah. But I knew that I had to set firm boundaries around my time at work and allow myself to be 100% focused at work, and my time with the kids and allow myself to be 100% focused with them, because that's where the value in my time was. The second hire was help at home, was someone to come in and help me clean the house. And then like personal, like chef services, like someone to do meal prep for me. Because when I took a step back and I looked at it, I really tried to put a dollar value to my time. Yeah. My time was most valuable in business development, in growing my business and sales, and also in spending quality time with my kids. And I know that I've only got a certain number of hours in a day. So would I rather spend those hours cooking and cleaning, or would I rather spend that time with my kids?
Right.
Would I rather spend that time doing laundry, or would I rather spend that time with my kids? And so to me, it made mathematical, like income level sense to allow myself to be supported at home, so that when I was at home, I wasn't checking my email. I wasn't distracted by work. I wasn't thinking about all the things that I should be doing. And at work, I wasn't thinking about the loads of laundry that I needed to do when I got home, or what I was going to make for dinner that day, or who was going to drop the kids off here or take them here.
Right.
So it's actually the first place where I allowed myself to be supported.
Mm-hmm.
Second was an administrative assistant. And that's where you get into, I don't even know what I would tell them to do.
Right. Yeah.
Here's the thing. With a good administrative assistant, you don't need to tell them what to do.
Right.
You say, I know that I need an administrative assistant, and I need you to take a look at what I'm doing every day and take the things off my plate that you can do. Like
right.
that's as simple as it can be. And it generally happens before you think you're ready, or before you think you can afford it.
Yeah.
A way to think about that is take a look at approximately how many hours you work a year. Generally, the average business owner works 2,000 hours per year. Take a look at how much money you make per year and divide that by 2,000. That's your average hourly rate.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing things like managing your own inbox, booking your own travel, managing your own calendar, fixing the copy machine, managing your clients' appointments, if you wouldn't pay somebody your hourly rate to do that, you're actually stealing money from your own pocket in your own company by doing it yourself.
Right. Right.
You could pay someone a lower level to do that, and then focus your time on income generation.
Yeah. I remember the first time my coach said that to me, and it was so powerful to think about the value on my time. And she's like, would you pay someone to do what you're paying yourself? Would you pay someone to do that? And I'm like, no, that's crazy. And she goes, well, that's what you're doing.
Yes.
That's
yes.
exactly
It's
what
such
you're
a wake-up
doing.
call.
It was such a wake-up call. And I mean, once my first hire was, I guess it was childcare too, because I had a mommy's helper. So for the person that's listening who thinks I have to hire full-time childcare, no, it could literally be the little girl down the street that could help you a couple of hours a day in watching your children, so you can make those calls and can, do those things that only you can do. Right. And it gives your kids opportunities to be social with other people. So that could be a whole nother episode. And then it was the housekeeper. And I've never looked back. That was like one of the best things ever, because I remember as a child, and this is no like shade at my mom, but I just remember on Saturdays, that's what we did. My brother and I were outside raking the yard, or we were inside and I was dusting the house and vacuuming and cleaning and all of those things. And she did too, right? She worked 9 to 5. And so Saturdays was her day to clean. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't want that for myself. And I don't want that for my family. And not that it's bad. If that's some people, like my mother-in-law, she says cleaning is her therapy. So it's not mine. I have other ways that I would enjoy some therapy. It's not cleaning and it's not cooking. And those of you that listen to the show, I don't like to do either one of those things. So I just appreciate you sharing that, but then also just breaking that down for people to see, okay, where you're spending your time and how much you're making each year and what your hourly rate is. Would you pay someone to do that? Right. And it gives someone an opportunity to use their skill sets. Maybe that's not your skill set as administrative work. You're just, you like more of the marketing, you're more of the creative side. You need someone to come in and manage you. I tell people, I'm like, just come tell me what to do. I will do it. I'm a worker. Don't make me think so hard. Just tell me do this and I will do it. I am a worker. Hey friend. So you have been trying to make some shifts this year. Maybe you set some resolutions and you're just feeling stuck. You don't feel like you're making progress, or you're just not sure what to do. And you've heard me say this before, but being stuck is a mindset, not a position. And this is where a coach comes in to support you. Because here's what I know to be true about you, friend. If you could have done it alone, you would have already done it, period. And as a life coach and a certified PDP professional, I specialize in using a research-based personality and performance survey called the ProScan to illuminate how your unique personality and natural strengths, your work and life environments are influencing real-time performance. So here's what you need to do. Go to the link in the show notes and book your free clarity call to learn more about how I can support you in your goals. I can't wait to illuminate your strengths, cultivate your confidence, and elevate your life. So when is the right time? Do you feel like there is a right time for someone who's listening and they're like, okay, is it now?
It's now. If
Yeah.
you're even considered, like if you've had the thought, oh, it'd be so nice to have help with this, you need to hire.
Yeah.
You know that when you're in overwhelm, you're an overcooked turkey. Like if you're in overwhelm, you've waited too long. And then what happens is when you're in overwhelm, the thought of hiring actually adds to that overwhelm.
Yeah.
Because now you're thinking, how am I going to have time to train this person? How am I going to have time to even have a conversation with this person because I'm doing all of these other things? So the idea is that you want to hire that person before the overwhelm hits, and you want to hire strategically based on the value of your time. So if you were to do, like, say, a time study, right, where every half hour you stop what you're doing and you write down what you've done for the previous half hour.
Right.
You will then compile a list over a week of all the tasks that you do in a week. You then look at those tasks and you assign a dollar value to that. And it could be as simple as a single dollar sign for the really inexpensive tasks that would cost you very little to hire someone to do for you, or even an intern could do for you. $2 signs for, medium, and then $3 signs for the more high value tasks that you should probably keep for yourself. Just creating that list in and of itself will be a huge wake up to how much you're doing that's not in your genius, that you should not be doing. That's actually stealing the time that you could be doing on the high value tasks that actually move your business forward and create more personal freedom in your life. It's those little tasks that steal your personal freedom.
Yeah.
Even if you hire someone to just manage your inbox and your calendar,
Yeah.
you're saving 4 to 6 hours per week.
Yes. And that was the last thing I gave my assistant to do. It was just really hard to let go of that, I guess, control, right, of your emails. And then once I did, I was like, I don't want to check another email ever again in my life.
We recommend all of our clients remove their email notifications from their phone.
Yeah.
Their assistant is empowered that if something urgent comes up, they'll just text them. So they're not constantly checking their email when they're not at work.
Yeah. Yeah. That was so freeing. And, I look back now and just the things that I was able to do because I had that help, whether it's the housekeeper. Again, one of the things my coach said to me years ago is if more money doesn't give you more time, you don't need more money. And that always stuck with me because more time, meaning more time with your family or more time doing things you want to do or more time in the things that only you can do to grow your business. So, if you're trying to make more money and you're not utilizing that to give you more time, then you don't need more money. And that's just really always stuck with me. So with that being said, with, you kind of making out, giving someone like the timeline or how much time they're spending on different things, do you feel like so it's very individual. Like you can't say to someone today, like you probably should hire a VA first, or you should probably hire a social media person first. Like, is there a tried and true, what you would say would be the first hire business wise?
Most people need to hire either a VA or an executive assistant first, because those are the tasks that they're currently doing that are taking the bulk of their time that they could pay someone, $12, $15 an hour when their hourly rate's $100 an hour, right? So
Right.
Generally across the board, especially with the business owners that we work with, and all of them are service-based entrepreneurs. So they're attorneys, they're massage, like you name it, service-based or info-based entrepreneurs. They really need someone to manage them. Someone to manage their email, someone to manage their calendar, someone to book travel for them, someone to do the lower dollar tasks that they honestly should have no business doing. And that could be a part-time virtual assistant. I mean, start where you are. Right. You can get virtual assistants overseas for $6 an hour that will manage your inbox very, very well for you. Even just that's worth the 4 to 6 hours that you save per week. So I always think start where you are, make your list, and begin to delegate so that you don't become the ultimate bottleneck in your business. So that you always have that time and space to continue to learn new things and also to focus on business development and relationship building. Right.
So you mentioned mom guilt a little bit ago, and I know that's always a question I ask every guest because it's just everywhere. I feel like, especially as mompreneurs, we deal with mom guilt. I don't know that it ever goes away, but in those moments that you have felt that, how did you kind of work through that? How have you helped to kind of decrease hiring help for sure? Or are there other things that you have done to kind of help decrease that mom guilt?
Yeah. I walk our clients through 5 key points to rid yourself of mom guilt. So the first one is when you're feeling mom guilt, stop and ask yourself, whose voice is this?
Yeah.
A lot of mom guilt has just been absorbed by you prior to the age of 7 by the females in your life and what you saw them do, right? So it could be your grandma's voice. Mine was always at least 75% of the time my grandmother's voice.
Yeah.
It could be your own mom's voice. And it's not that they did anything, like, it's not about blaming them. It's about understanding that this voice is not your voice. You weren't born with guilt. Guilt was taught. Guilt was given to you. So whose voice is that? And being able to separate it from your own voice and seeing that it's someone else's voice helps you to see the truth in that. And then the other part of that is asking if there's any truth to the guilt. So sometimes guilt's productive, right? Like, let's say you're supposed to be spending time with your kids and you're on your phone checking your email. That message that's being sent to your kids is that they're not worth your time.
Right.
It might not be a bad thing for you to feel guilty about that, because that will cause a change in your behavior. Right. So first, like, whose voice and getting to the truth? Like, is there some truth to this? The second thing is self-care. And this isn't self-care like getting your nails done once a week or booking a massage once a month. Because ladies, we all know while you're sitting there getting your nails done or while you're on the massage table, you're thinking about all the things that you could be or should be doing, and you're not actually self-caring at all.
Absolutely. I'm with you on that.
Self-care that I'm talking about is making sure that there's time for you in your calendar. Meaning, if you love to read fiction in the morning, then there's 45 minutes set aside just for you to read fiction in the morning. If you love going for walks, if you have hobbies, if you like crafting, that you can see you somewhere in your calendar where it's not all about your husband or your parents or your kids or your team or your business or your clients, because, you know, moms intrinsically are trained to take care of everyone before they take care of themselves. So putting you back into your life. And then 3 is boundaries. So boundaries around your time and boundaries around the messages that you let into your life. So speaking from my own experience, I had someone who was constantly in my ear telling me all the things that I could be doing better with my kids. Right? Does not have her own business, does not understand what it's like to have her own business. And I had to put up, say, a boundary and say, you know, I'm not open to this conversation now or ever. Like, this is not a conversation that I'm going to have ever again with you. And set that boundary to not allow myself to take that negativity in that then just feeds the guilt. Right? So setting boundaries with the people in your life that feel like they want to contribute and help, but they're actually not contributing and helping. And then also setting boundaries around your work time and your family time, and being very clear, both with your family and with your work, about those. So you're communicating with your family, hey, between these hours, unless something's burning or someone's dying or bleeding, I don't get interrupted. Between these hours, unless the company is going bankrupt or some major, shit show is happening, nobody contacts me at home during these times, right? And then enforcing those boundaries. Allowing help, which we've already talked about, like allow yourself help so that you have time, so that you don't constantly feel torn. And then the 5th one, which I think is one of the most important, but so overlooked, and that's actually to celebrate yourself. For sure. It's not, it hasn't ever been okay for someone to say like, oh, I really did a good job here. Because that's, conceited or self-centered. But it's actually an act of self-love. And you can't have self-love and guilt in the same space at the same time. So if you're constantly focused on all the things that you're not doing or who you're letting down, you don't see all the really great things that you are doing for yourself and your family and your clients and your team and their families. So making sure that you're setting some time aside to actually celebrate yourself and speak positively about yourself will also help with mom guilt. And
I think for someone who is a recovering people pleaser, or maybe she's kind of in that state right now, of trying to work through her guilt or trying to get herself back on, off the back burner and actually like even on a burner. I mean, so many women have just completely taken themselves off all the burners. They're not even on the back anymore. They're just not there anymore. And they're always saying like, one day, right? Like one day I'll get back to that. One day I'll get back to taking care of myself. One day when my kids are in college, I'll have time to date my spouse, it's always that one day that never comes. And so it takes an intentionality, right? The things you just shared, it's not going to come natural. I just want the listener to really hear that. If you have been behaving and being a way of being in one way, it's going to take some time. So give yourself some grace in that process and don't just think, well, I tried what Steph said and Martine said, it just didn't work for me. Give yourself that grace and that time and the time to actually write some of these things down on paper. Like when you were saying, celebrate your wins. I talk about that a lot too, because we don't do that. We're so, especially if you're an achiever, like a high achieving, highly determined, motivated woman, then you're going on to the next thing before you're even looking back and going, wow, I just did that. I just completed that, or I just did that. And it could be from the largest thing to the smallest thing, depending on what season you're in. If you have littles at home, you're probably celebrating that you put your makeup on today and you actually showed up at your desk, not in your pajamas or yoga pants. So we celebrate, big or small, we celebrate them all, but just taking the time to put pen to paper and writing some of these thoughts, getting them out of your head and onto paper, I think is super important.
Yeah, my husband and I started to do an activity with my girls when they were, middle school aged. Mm-hmm. I wish I would have started this a lot earlier. And it's called appreciations and gratitude. And every night at dinner time, everyone has to say 3 things they appreciate about themselves and 3 things that they're grateful for. And that could be for anything. And it's interesting because we talk to our clients about this, and our clients will report that their young kids have no problem appreciating themselves, right? They'll come up with a whole bunch of lists, like I appreciate my toes, and I appreciate my colors, and I appreciate, they like appreciate so many things about themselves. Mm-hmm. And then by middle school and high school, it gets much more difficult for the kids to say things that they appreciate about themselves, which is sad to me. And it just becomes not okay to appreciate yourself. So we do that. We did. My girls are gone now. I'm empty nesting. When they were home, every dinner, we would go around and say 3 appreciations and 3 gratitudes, even if no one felt like it, because that's the best time to do it. It's when it's needed most. And just getting in the habit of letting it be okay for you to appreciate how you showed up that day, or a decision that you made, or even just, I appreciate that I went for a walk. I appreciate that I didn't blow up. I appreciate that I, whatever that is. Getting into a habit of that is such an act of self-love, and it's such a great example for your kids as well.
Yeah. Well, it just gets your brain in that positive space too. It's really hard to be complaining and being thankful and grateful at the same time. Like you said, it's hard to be feeling guilty and celebrating yourself at the same time. So it's a choice to take those steps and actually do those things, right? A lot of times we think, oh, this is a great idea, and then we don't implement. Most of us don't have a knowledge problem. We have an implementation problem. We have all this knowledge, but we're not putting in action behind it. And then we're wondering why things are not changing. So I hope that you all take that to heart. That's just so simple. Don't overcomplicate what this will look like for you in removing mom guilt, but just take the time to do some of these things that she talked about. Okay. So when we talk about entrepreneurship, lessons as an entrepreneur, can you describe the 100K mistake you made and what you learned from it? Really curious about this one.
Oh, my 100K mistake. It was actually over 100,000 by the time it was all said and done. So I had my nutrition practice, and everything had gone really well for me. Like, I built my practice very quickly. I didn't have I just wasn't hard. It didn't feel hard for me. Right. And I got to the place, like I said, where I was maxed out. And my solution to that was to create a software program. And the software program would allow people to log their daily food intake, and then it would give real-time feedback about what would need to change or what they should eat for dinner, and it would have recipes and supplement recommendations. And my big idea was I was going to create this to support my clients, but I was also going to partner with supplement companies and have them offer it to their clients as well, because I was partnering with many supplement companies in my nutrition practice. And I contracted with a friend to build the software for me without a contract. So lesson number 1 learned: don't ever hire a contractor and not have a contract in place. And so we went to work in building this, and it was very exciting. I didn't have I didn't have the ability to take any loans out at that time. So I financed it on credit cards. Another big mistake. Now, credit card interest at that time wasn't like it is now. It was pre-2008 kind of recession. So interest rates weren't horrific. They weren't like 20 to 30% interest, but it was still like 10, 12% interest on those loans.
Right.
And it just kept being delayed, and more money just kept being needed, and more things just kept being added. And what was supposed to be a $30,000 project ended up at $100,000 by the time I pulled the plug.
Wow.
The other two hard lessons is that I didn't do any market research. So at the time, this was back in 2007, that was still a time when not everybody had computers in their houses. And most of my clients were between the ages of 45 and 65. So they weren't super tech savvy. They didn't have smartphones. I mean, there were smartphones at that time.
No, there wasn't. I was just thinking that was when we had the BlackBerry, probably.
I had a BlackBerry. Yes.
I love the BlackBerry.
I didn't do any market research to see if this is something that my clients would want to use or would pay to use. And I didn't pre-sell it. So I didn't pre-sell it to supplement companies and make sure that they would even be interested in having the conversation before I built it, which are 3 huge lessons that have saved millions of dollars for us where we are right now, because I will never, ever contract with someone without a contract.
Yeah.
We pre-sell everything. And we do our market research before we launch anything as well to make sure that there's both a demand and it's viable, feasible. So I currently have a $100,000 program floating out in the ether in the internet somewhere that's never been used, that never was sold, and that I had to pay back with our own personal money because I financed it all on credit cards. It took me years and years. It was a painful mistake. Mistake.
Yeah.
And it was good because I would have rather have learned those lessons then than learning them now, because it would be much more costly now. Yeah. That was my $100,000 business mistake. It was a pretty big one.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs, especially if you're building out your own programs and services, whether it's a physical product or a digital product, that's so important to beta test and just to put it out there and just see, is this something that somebody is really interested in, right? Because as the person who's creating, you're like, oh, this is a great idea. Everybody's going to want this. And then you put it out there and you get nothing. And you do waste a lot of time on websites and, all of the marketing materials and all of those things before you realize, is this a product that people want? Is this a solution that people need in their business or in their lives? And that's really, really important. Because I feel like this year, really just with everything that happened over the last 2 years, a lot of people have made some shifts and some pivots in how they bring in income. A lot of people have moved to being entrepreneurs or starting a side hustle. And so really just understanding what you just shared is super important. Those 3 things, test it, mark, contract. And then what was the third thing you said? Maxing it out on your credit cards. Wasn't that the third?
So it was make sure you have a contract, do your market research, understand your ideal client. My ideal client does not want a computer program.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're like, that's not part of who they are. And then also pre-sell. So reach out and pre-sell before you even create what it is that you're selling.
So I tell people as an entrepreneur, we own roller coasters, right? There's ups and downs, upside downs, twists and turns all along the journey. What are some ways that you have kind of worked through some of those obstacles as an entrepreneur? There's always a mess before the success, and you just shared a little bit of it right there. But what are some, there's new challenges because the market's always changing. How she buys, how he buys is constantly changing. How you show up on social media is constantly changing, and it can feel overwhelming. And there may have been some setbacks in the businesses or challenges. What are some ways that you work through those challenges?
So I don't see obstacles as a negative thing, right? For me, everything just is. Yep. And everything happens to cause me to learn something new, and that's going to get me closer to my desired end result. So I've taken the negative sting out of mistakes and out of obstacles, and really kind of, reframed it as this just is. This is just part of business. And it's interesting because I talk to a lot of business owners that are very destination focused, where they think success is the destination. And when they get to that destination, whatever it is, they find out that actually doesn't feel like success. It feels like any other day. We work with a lot of people that their first goal is they want to hit $1 million. And then they'll reach out to me and say, Steph, I hit $1 million 2 weeks ago. I didn't even realize it. And I don't feel any different than I did before I'd hit the $1 million, a year in revenue. And it it's a testament to that success is about the journey and how you show up in that journey and how you think about what it is that you're doing. So we see challenges as opportunities. We see problems as opportunities because we know with every problem or challenge, there is an opportunity also attached.
Yeah.
So if you're focused on the problem or the challenge, all you'll see is the problem or the challenge. If you're focused on the gift or the solution or the lesson in those problems or challenges, then that's what you'll see. And that's what will move you forward faster than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. You'll find what you're looking for every time.
Every time. There's a gift in every single situation, whether it becomes apparent immediately or it takes a couple of years. There is a gift there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We either get the result we want or the lesson we needed. And that is a mindset, right? That you have to choose. And that, again, that may not happen overnight. If you're used to always looking at the problem or the challenge, and shifting that mindset might take some time, and it may require you to hire a coach or someone who can help you unlearn some of those, mindsets and kind of shift some of those. And there's plenty of us out here to do that. So as we kind of wrap up, if you had the opportunity, which you kind of do right now here on the podcast, to just share one thing with all the mompreneurs of the world, what would be the one thing you would want them to know?
That it's okay to be selfish. That's totally okay to be selfish. I think that a lot of mompreneurs have a dysfunctional understanding of what selfishness means.
Mm-hmm.
The true definition, the positive definition of selfish is that you choose what you want to do and you do it. Mm-hmm. The negative definition of selfish is expecting other people to do the things that you want them to do. And I think for moms, giving yourself permission to allow yourself to dream about what you want and put yourself back in your life is not selfish. It's a very positive way of being selfish. And it also sets a great example for your kids and everyone that you touch, because you're giving yourself permission to live your life. And you only get one. It's your one chance. And a lot of people live their lives for everybody else and have very, very little of themselves in that. So if I were to give one piece of advice, it would be make sure that you've got time for you in your life and that you're doing what it is that you really want to do, not what everyone expects you to do.
Yeah. That's such a good note to end on. Y'all know I'm Martine Williams and I fully support that message. It's amazing. So in alignment with everything that I talk about, and you're so easy to talk to, and we could probably talk for another hour or two, but tell me what you're most excited about in your business and how people can connect with you and what you have going on at your business.
We're just most excited about all the business owners that we're currently helping. There's so much fear being perpetrated right now in the media in terms of the recession and all the things going on in the world, where we really feel like our gift is helping people stay focused on what's right in front of them and what's true for them. So we're just excited to talk to more businesses, have more impact, because we know that trickles down to the people that those businesses lead in terms of their families and their clients. We've just created a fantastic visionary leadership assessment to help you really uncover the type of leader that you are. And that's located on our website. We're really excited about it and getting great feedback from all of our business owners, because it shows you what type of leader you are, what your strengths and what your weaknesses are, and then gives you suggestions on what to do with those weaknesses.
Right.
And then if somebody wants to connect with me directly, best place to do that is on my personal Instagram account. It's at Steph Tuss. It's me. I'm the one that posts everything. I'm the one that messages. There's no weird catfish chatbot answering anything for me. It's actually me, and I love interacting with people through Instagram. So
it's social media. We're supposed to be social with people, right? Not robots.
Yes.
No shade to anybody who's outsourcing that. I mean, I get it. There are times and seasons for that.
Sometimes you must outsource.
Sometimes you must. But it is really nice when you actually are talking to the person, and you can tell. I feel like you can tell. Absolutely. Well, this was awesome. And we will include the links to all of those things in the show notes for everyone that's listening, so they can connect with you and go check out that new Visionary Leader Assessment. That sounds amazing. So thank you again for your time here on the show. It was really, really great to meet you and hear your story. And I know there were lots of things that you laid down that people picked up today. So thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, friends. Well, I will catch you on the next episode. And you know that I'm believing in you always. Well, that's a wrap, friends, for this week's episode of the Mompreneur Life Remixed podcast. Thank you so much for listening and for following the show. It means so much to me. And listen, friend, sharing is caring. So if you loved this episode and thought of some fellow mompreneurs who could benefit, send them the link. Share this episode or take a screenshot and head on over to Instagram and share and tag me at Martine31Williams. We are connected on Instagram, right? It's where you will get all the fun behind the scenes of my life and business as a mompreneur. Until next time, know that I am believing in you always.